Welcome back to Used to Sew, a podcast about sewing machines, sewing history, and sewing culture in the past and present. I am your producer and co-host, Aradia, daughter of your main host, T.R. Kelly, who is here today to talk to you about determining the worth of your sewing machine in general, and her quest for a hand-crank long shuttle sewing machine in particular. This episode was partly inspired by last week's episode about old badged machines, and is also a live example of how to use general advice about determining the worth of a sewing machine to a particular quest. Being bitten by the worth bug is a natural experience as a new sewing machine hobbyist, and fortunately, many people have come before you and have written some great essays on how to wrangle that urge into something manageable. Within the community known as ISMACS, International Sewing Machine Collectors Society, we have an essay from Dorothy Brumleve about the different kinds of value that exist and how to be realistic about which kind your machine is. And we have Graham Forsdyke, who crafted a 10-point scale to rank machine condition by. Even within these excellent essays, the ultimate answer is that what is its worth is not the right question. The right question is, what is it worth to you? And in this episode, we will follow TR through the flowchart to an answer that was right in a particular moment.
Well, welcome back to Used to Sew for another fun-filled week of sewing machine talk. Everything about sewing machines, sewing culture, and sewing history. We got that. We got that in large quantities here. And today, I want to talk about old sewing machines. I'm not talking your 1930s, electric. I'm talking pre-electric. I'm talking old. And this is definitely sparked by our visit to the Shelton McMurphy house. I was like, wow, those are machines that were never electrified. All those treadles that were up there, nobody had ever slapped a motor on those. And they were all long shuttle. And after teaching you about the Davis long shuttle, I was like, and then giving you a hand crank 66, I'm like, all right, I want a hand crank, and it's going to be a long shuttle. I want a really old one, not necessarily a transverse shuttle that we talked about where the needle goes back and forth. Where am I going to find such a thing? Where do you find an old sewing machine like that? Well, lots of people look on eBay. It's a good place to just get an idea of what's out there being sold. So I'm scrolling through all the machines and new, rare, ultra rare, super rare, vintage. People put all these silly words on stuff. It's like, that's not rare. That's the Singer 127. They were made in the millions. Rare. But it's that whole thing about you find something in the barn and it looks old and like, ooh, it must be worth something. Which takes me to the first thing I want to talk about, which is, okay, old machines, or you got an old machine. And the first thing people ask is,
what's it worth?
Exactly. Here's a little article written by Dorothy Brumleve of the International Sewing Machine Collectors Society. And we'll talk about them some too. They're woven into today's story. But first of all, how much is my sewing machine worth? And this is mattering to me because I'm like, okay, how much am I going to pay for an old hand crank like that? I haven't really looked. So I went right to ISMACS. How much is my sewing machine worth? Dorothy says, my conservative guess is that between them, ISMACS members on the internet get about 200 requests of this nature each week. Despite statements on their pages and on all the major ISMACS websites that requests for valuations will be ignored, about half the mail field is from folks who want to know, what's my sewing machine worth? Our members react to these in different ways. Graham Forsdyke, who suffers the bulk of such mail, dumps the requests straight into the trash. Other members are more gentle, and one, Dorothy Brumleve, has produced a page on her website to help those bitten by the worth bug. Okay, what's it worth? She goes on. You've got Grandma's Singer 127 or Mom's Featherweight or Aunt Naomi's new home treadle, and you don't want it. Your sister doesn't want it. Your daughter doesn't want it. And your other daughter says, hey, that's an antique. I bet it's worth something. Something is more than nothing, and your machine is probably worth something to somebody somewhere. But how much? To whom? In what venue? How do you determine the monetary value of something you didn't buy, don't know how to use, and don't want to keep?
This is so cuttingly accurate.
I mean, Ismax is the oldest sewing machine group. I mean, Victorian sweatshop's fun, but these guys are like, they need a little more cachet. Anyway, first, it's important to consider the kind of value your machine might have to a buyer. Consider those qualities of your machine which will appeal to a prospective buyer. The reason for the buyer's interest and purchase will greatly influence the range of monetary value you might expect and may help determine the best marketing approach and venue for your sale. Okay, 1. If it really is your grandmother's machine, it could have sentimental value to someone in her family or in her acquaintance. Any working sewing machine has utilitarian value for a subset of people who actually sew. A pretty sewing machine with a beautiful cabinet or case may well have decorative value to some potential buyers. Included here are machines whose decoration and form provide a striking example of a period style, such as High Victorian, Art Deco, Art Nouveau, arts and crafts. Very old machines and machines which represent an important milestone in the sewing machine industry may have historical value. These would include most very early machines, mid-1800s, by both obscure and renowned manufacturers, and maybe a few later machines. Also included under this heading are machines which have been owned by someone of historical significance, assuming that provenance can be established. And finally, there's collector's value. Most collections have a focus of some kind, whether intentional or not. A machine which has historical value will always be of interest to some collectors, but there are also collectors who focus on machines with decorative and or utilitarian value. Some collectors limit their collection to one manufacturer. In the United States, Singer is undoubtedly the most often collected brand. Some collect only hand cranks, others only treadles. Some collect small or toy machines. Some collect only from a specific time period or a country of origin. A real boat anchor, quote, with little potential for, that's what we do call them in the industry, boat anchors. A real boat anchor with little potential for restoration may still have value for its parts. Both collectors and people who sew seek out broken or incomplete machines in order to restore better examples of this same machine which may be missing parts. And there are also folks who convert parts of sewing machines into lamps and cabinets and such. They are looking for part machines too. The potential monetary value of a parts machine will be influenced by the value of a good example of the same machine, right? You got a really good Wheeler & Wilson number 9, but it needs, So if it's just some cheeseball machine, parts, you don't care. Okay, so let's go back through those just for a minute. The kinds of values: sentimental, utilitarian, decorative, historical, collectors, or value for parts. How does all that translate to monetary value? On a given day, a sewing machine is worth what a particular seller can sell it for to a particular buyer in a particular venue. Season, geographic region, marketplace, personality, manufacturer, model, rarity, condition, history, completeness, and the reason the buyer is buying all influence the monetary value. Value is not fixed but fluid. Even so, it's a good thing to consider that relatively few machines today command prices in the hundreds of dollars, and very, very few, italics, will bring thousands. You can always consult a professional appraiser. You'd pay a fee, of course, and there's a significant risk that the fee would be more than the value of the machine.
This is an amazing article. I love how clearly and concisely and elegantly everything is being laid out with plenty of detail, but also it's so broad you can fit any edge case into it. I love it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Dorothy Brumleve is one of the top Ismax people. She knows her stuff. Here are some tips for estimating the current retail value of your machine. Professional appraisers would bring some of these same resources to this task. You can learn an approximate retail value for your machine by investing a little of your time in research. If you actually want to sell it at that price, you'll probably then have to invest a lot more time in marketing, like writing a description, taking pictures, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so here's some tips. 1, take your machine to an experienced antique dealer. How much does he or she offer you? Multiply by at least 2, okay? Because they're not going to buy it for full price. They're going to buy it for about half of what they think they can sell it for.
Sure.
2, find a similar machine at a busy antique store. Notice the sticker price. Then ask the dealer how many years and months the machine has been sitting there with that price on it. Cut in half the dealer's price for every 3 months that it has sat unsold. 3, post your machine on the ebay.com auction website with a $9 reserve. Don't misspell sewing machine. If your auction attracts bids, you'll soon know what it's worth at that time in that venue to those bidders. If it doesn't attract any bids, it's not even worth the $9 in time in that venue to those bidders. I don't know how she came up with that. 4, now this is what I do a lot. Watch ebay.com for the sale of similar machines. Bookmark the auction pages and go back and see what the actual final selling price is, not what people are asking for it. Assuming the machine's actually sold and any reserve is met. How does your machine compare to sold machines? Be critical. Could you take pictures as well as the dealer who sold on eBay? Can you write a good description? Are you willing to put in the time? Taking pictures, writing descriptions, doing accounting, and most importantly, packaging the machine for safe shipment. That's a job, folks, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
If not, divide the eBay price by 4 and go back to your antique dealer with a printout and make an offer. 5, search the web for machines like yours for sale by individual dealers. Note the price and watch to see if they actually sell at that price. A lot of people think these things are worth more than they actually are. Learn more about the history of your machine. Was the manufacturer successful? Were there many made? Do many survive? Rarity is a major influence on value. Is your machine post-World War II? Is it from the 20th century? 19th century? Age is a factor that impacts on rarity. The first practical sewing machine was invented in the 1850s. Closer to that date a given machine was made, the more likely it will be worth. So older is, if you're looking at worth here. For 19th century machines, there's a fairly useful chart in Carter Bay's book. Carter Bay's is another sewing machine guy. The Encyclopedia of Early Sewing Machines. It is a mistake to rely on any price guide, but the relative rarity of various machines in the book is fairly accurately represented. A machine that is rare in Mr. Bay's book will likely be more coveted by collectors and therefore worth more than a machine that is considered common. It's common sense. Another good source of production figures and thus of rarity is Grace Cooper's The Invention of the Sewing Machine. If you discover your machine is indeed rare, then I would strongly advise you to seek a professional in-person appraisal from someone who does not intend to buy the machine from you.
At that point, it's worth just paying someone for their professional opinion without the mind games.
Yeah, I paid for an appraisal of a Navajo rug that I had because I knew it was the real thing, but that's all I knew about it. And so I paid $50 for an appraisal. The guy told me everything about it, where it was made, da-da-da-da-da. He was just an expert. And I paid $50 for that appraisal. And turns out the rug's worth about $500. I don't want to sell it. I think it's cool. I got it for $20 at St. Vinny's.
And then you spent $50 getting an in-depth info dump from someone who had put the work in to just know all the things. That's awesome.
He's a recognized expert. So his evaluation is like, okay, this guy said, he's like some of these ISMAX guys that will give you a evaluation on your machine, not for free, but then you can say, hey, this is what it actually probably is worth. And you might be doing that for insurance purposes. Some people that have collections of old stuff, they need valuations. I had to do that when I worked for Singer. People had a house fire and lost their sewing room. What's it going to cost me to replace all this stuff? So that's different than what's the value as an antique. That's like, what's the replacement value? Okay, 20th century machines. It's back to Dorothy here. Were made in the millions and most survive in great numbers. In many cases, this will hold down retail value. Some 20th century machine names are rare, but the machine model itself is likely to be common under a number of names. Remember how we talked about badged machines?
Badged machines. Yep. It's a Gevert special. No, 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 no.
Oh my God, I found a Gevert special. No, it's a badged national. So that one trips people up a lot. They think they find, oh my God, I've never heard of this. It must be rare. A few plentiful models have commanded higher prices when the demand has been so great that it has outstripped even a generous supply. Most 20th century machines have a greater value as a piece of useful equipment than as a, quote, collector's item. As a rule, machines made of plastic and machines made in Japan command garage sale prices. That's not always true nowadays. A lot of people collect Japanese machines, and I find that some of them are just amazing. Okay, back to Dorothy. Suppose you followed these steps and have discovered that your machine is worth very little money. Should you just throw it away? Not necessarily. Nearly all machines could be useful to someone somewhere for parts. Sometimes the parts will bring much more than the whole machine. This is true. Slides, throat plates, cams, hand wheels, etc. from 20th century singers are especially sought after, as these machines are still commonly in actual use today, and replacement parts are hard to find.
Right. There are no replacement parts for the replacement parts.
Yeah. I mean, even to the point where people are 3D printing cams and stuff now because there just aren't any originals left.
Right. The machine was common, but as it dwindles, it dwindles.
And there are parts that, we call high mortality parts, things that break or wear out. And so, okay, I've got this 201, it's all rusted, but the motor's still in good shape. Well, those motors are worth money. They are, because there aren't many around, and that's the only motor that'll work on that machine. Okay, a machine owned by a family member may well be worth more in sentiment than dollars. If you find your machine will not bring riches, consider letting it bring pleasure instead. Even if closer relatives have rejected, you could seek further. A grandchild, niece, nephew, cousin, or good friend might greatly enjoy the gift of the machine. So, there we go. Dorothy Brumleve from Ismax. What is my machine worth? Well, it varies. Let's just say featherweights, for example. Everybody, even people that don't sew, that little singer, I've heard of that. That's worth a lot of money. Well, a full dress featherweight now is going for $500 and up. That's a lot of money. But there was millions made. Why are they worth so much? Because they're neat. They really are good design. They're portable, they're small, and it's just a status thing to have one as well. However, our 101, Great Old Singer 101, only 250,000 were made. That's pretty rare for a 20th century singer. Why are they not worth a lot more money? I don't know. They're hard to find, and when you find them, they don't cost very much. I just haven't quite figured that out yet. Definitely my favorite machine, though.
I think that's because you're a nerd and you have the nerd tunnel where you can't comprehend how normal people see a thing. There's this great single panel comic from XKCD comic or however that name is. And it's the two people talking and it's like, most people are so ignorant of geology or whatever that they don't, they barely even know their mineral types and stuff. And aside from, feldspar and plagioclase and quartz. Well, obviously, I mean, everyone knows those. And this is how every single specialization gets. This is how every single nerd rabbit hole gets is the 101 is underwhelming. If you've seen everything that comes after, you have to be a nerd to know about why it's special as the first of the electric machines and only 250,000 were made. Those are things that only a nerd would know. It's underwhelming at face value.
That's true. But even without that, if you sit down and sew at the thing, it's quiet, it's fast, it's pretty. It's got that what she called practical tool value still. That's why I like it. It's not a particularly pretty machine. It doesn't have foo-foo decals and all that stuff.
Again, underwhelming. Why would anyone sit down and experiment with it when there's a, 201 sitting next to it or whatever?
Right, because 201 has reverse. Ooh. Ah. Now let's go with another thing from Ismax. This is from Graham Forsdyke, who's one of like the big dogs over there. I think he might have recently passed away. I hope not. This is called the Forsdyke scale for sewing machines, and it's about how to evaluate and put a number on what condition is this machine in. So pretty much anybody who's a serious sewing machine dealer follows this scale. So 10-point scale. We're going to read it. Look at your machine and see where it fits in the scale. Number 10, mint. Just like the day it left the factory, not a scratch or mark on it. There have only been 2 machines documented in this category, never been used. All right? So that's like you found a brand new machine in the basement of an old sewing store or something.
Wow. 2 have actually been found. That is...
Yeah,
whoa.
2. 9, near mint. Similar to 10, but with a small odd scratch or wear mark evident on close inspection. The machine has only been used a few times or for a very short stretch of time. Decals are perfect. So like your grandmother's machine might have fit into this category.
Right. That, yeah, because it literally got used a handful of times and then put in a closet for decades. Truly was not used, but it was technically used. So yeah, it technically not mint, but okay, sure.
Mm-hmm. No little hits on the needle plate. I mean, just hardly, just, you know. Number 8, excellent used condition. All paint good, all metalwork bright. What the average antique dealer would call perfect. Decals near perfect, perhaps a slight mark or scratch in a few locations. Number 7, very good. Rubbing of paint evident and some nickel plating worn. Decals have scratches or a few small nicks in the pattern, perhaps some faded regions on the decals from fabric wear. The kind you see on the bed where the fabric's just been pushed over the, you know.
A well-used machine.
So that's a number 7, very good. Number 6, good used condition. Similar to 7, but more wear to the paint, more surface rust to the bright work. Decals will have much more wear, missing sections, or quite faded in spots. We see this is kind of the average, you know, you see it in St. Vinny's kind of thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is getting into about the nicest ones you're going to see at a thrift shop. This is about the top of that pocket.
Now we're getting into the ones that I like to buy. Number 5, average. Well-used, ill-cared-for machine looking for someone to love it. Deep scratches in the finish. Decals have large worn missing sections, significant rust on bright parts. Let me at it. I can fix it. So that was average. Number 4 is poor condition. Chipped enamel, rusty metalwork, but acceptable for a collection if it's a rare machine. Number 3, in need of restoration, but a reasonable job for a dedicated sewing machine enthusiast. Number 2, total restoration, needed to paintwork and bright metal. It's a brave collector that takes this type of machine on. Number 1, bottom of the scale, parts only.
Oof.
So I'm fine. The average, I've done a lot of 3s, 4s, and 5s. I've never done, there's some, well, I think that 29 UFA cobbler machine that I'm working on would count as a 2, total restoration.
Yeah, the one that your brother needed 2 full days of a garage full of tools in order to get the stuff unstuck enough to start cleaning. I think that counts as a 2.
Right.
Yeah.
And we still need to fabricate a couple metal pieces for it that are gone. So that's a number 2.
Yeah, that's a 2.
But the 5s are the ones that, that's what you see. Well-used, ill-cared-for machine looking for someone to love it.
Yeah, well-used, ill-cared for. That describes the vast majority of sewing machines that I have seen. Looking for someone to give them the love they need to, like, come back into a better state. And they've been used well and hard and then not so well, but still hard.
Yeah, usually the one that when its owner died, it got stuck in the basement or the barn. That's kind of that machine. She used it to death, and then they kind of stuck it away somewhere and made it even worse.
The sewing machine from the Sewing Machine song is right about there, too.
Yes.
When it gets found rusting in a alley after decades of work and then being roughly electrified and worked even harder. Like, that's down there into partial restoration, into almost near restoration space.
That's, the line in the song says, "My paint was worn... my heart was strong, my stitches straight and fine." There's no decals left. She used it, but it still works good. But what's it worth? Okay, now let's get back to this So we've gone through all this. Okay, what's it worth? What's it worth? Here's me looking for a hand crank long shuttle
Right.
on eBay. I know all this stuff. I was a member of ISMAX for a while. There's even an article in one of the old issues of the magazine that has a picture of the tattoo on the back of my neck. That's sewing machine stuff. Back when that was not a common thing. I'll have to dig that out. I think it's at your house. Anyway, ISMAX, they're cool. And I know all their condition stuff. I know all these things. When people ask me what's my sewing machine worth? I always say $1 million. Because it's a stupid question. It's a stupid question.
Right, yeah.
What's it worth? Well, do you sew? Would you just want money? You know, what do you mean? What's it worth? How's it worth? Anyway, so here's me looking for the hand crank. Ding, ding, ding. Boy, there's some really... I'd love to buy a Jones family hand crank. That's a really popular brand in Great Britain. But guess what? All of the British... You know that whole tariff thing that's going on now? Import duties and all that?
Yeah.
You really can't buy any machines from the UK. And I totally would. They have the best hand cranks, I think, are in the UK option website because they just had more of them. And more manufacturers of hand cranks. So I'm looking at all these beautiful UK ones, and okay, just get it back down to US only, so I see what I'm looking at here. You know, so $500, no. $300, who are they fooling? $250 for that? There's not even any attachments, blah, blah, blah. Oh, 1890 Singer hand crank. And I see the picture, and oh, well, it is. And it's got the wooden dome case, which is, I'm looking for one that's complete with case. And I looked through the pictures, and this thing is a condition 4.5. It's got chips, actual chips in the paint down to the metal. All the decals are gone. It doesn't even say Singer anymore, but it has the original hand crank on it. Ooh, not one of those cheap Chinese rattly ones that they sell now, which work but are very unpleasant to use. And the seller has taken pictures of all angles of the machine. If you want to sell a machine, take pictures of all the stuff, including is the shuttle in the shuttle carrier. All right. It's a Singer, so that part is really easy to find. It's another reason I was kind of wanting a Singer hand crank is because even on the long shuttle machines, the parts are pretty easy to find. I mean, not at Joann Fabric, but, you know, online from people that sell these things. I looked at the hand crank. Okay, that's real. The shuttle's there. Here's the case. Okay, the shellac is bad, but it's not split or broken. The handle's attached. The latches are attached. All these mechanical things that are important to me. I'm not really looking at, how the decals look terrible. No, the machine's finish is horrid. But I can also see that it's not rusty.
That's important.
But it's gummed up with 135 years of oil. I mean, it's orange goo on all the working parts. That's not a problem. I think that's pretty fun. Oh, and there's a whole picture of all the attachments.
Oh.
There's an extra shuttle. There's all kinds of cool attachments that I haven't seen. This is far and away the oldest household machine, not the old cobbler, but this is like the oldest machine I've ever owned before was 1903. I'm looking at something from 1890, and they posted a picture of the serial number. I looked it up. Yeah, okay. They want $100 for it. What's the shipping? It weighs 30 pounds. Shipping is $60. It's coming from California, just right down the pike. It doesn't have to go very far. The guy has, when you're buying on eBay, does this person sell sewing machines regularly?
Right.
Do they know how to pack a sewing machine? Oh my God, so many machines. I bought one Davis on eBay and it arrived damaged because the person threw it in a box with a bunch of packing peanuts. That's not how you pack a 30-pound piece of cast iron. It'll bust right. So this person had 100% good feedback, not too many sales. They sold a lot of sewing machines, but a lot of other good things too. But in their feedback profiles was always well packaged. Oh, okay.
Excellent.
All right. So I put in a bid. I was the only bidder. I won. I was the only bidder. And you know why? Why do you think?
Because it wasn't priced very high and it didn't have lots of decals.
Yeah, the condition. It wasn't pretty.
Yeah, it didn't look shiny glitter. But you saw through to the actual utility and historicity of the machine.
Yeah. And the person who was selling it didn't even know the model number because Singer didn't put model numbers on their stuff for quite a while, the little tag. They just didn't make that many models, so you were expected to know, oh, this is... But I could tell from looking at it that it was some variation of a Model 28. Because that's the long shuttle machine. It's 28 and 27. Later, 128 and 127. Okay, confusingly, whatever. 27 is the full-sized one. 28 is the little 3/4 size hand crank. So I'm looking at this machine and I'm going, that's a 28. Not a fiddle bed, square bed. So since it was just down the road in California, it arrived in 3 days.
Excellent.
Very well packaged with lots of styrofoam and bubble wrap and tape and everything's awesome. I get it out. Doesn't stink. Open up the case. This latches are like nothing I've seen before. It's very exciting. The whole case is built much sturdier than the modern wooden domed cases. Open it up and there it is. And I give it a little turn and it turns. Okay, not frozen up. It's not rusted, just like the picture. There's a little, inside the domey part of the dome case is this little wooden compartment, and that's where the attachments are. And he's wrapped them all up individually too. Oh, so they're not rattling around. So I get them all out and I go, what the hell is this thing? What is this? What is this? I don't know. But what I do know is this thing is packed full of grunge and I'm going to clean it out. Now, the age of the machine, 1891. I'll tell you more about how I looked that up. But it would still have been being oiled with sperm oil.
Right.
And then later, petroleum right over the top. Now, here's something they tell you in the sewing machine manuals is like, every year or so, flush all your bearings with kerosene. Get all the old oil out and start over.
Yeah, no one's doing that.
They hadn't done that on this. They had just been oiling it for 135 years. Just push more oil in there, hon. There were like drifts of... It looks like it should be gooey, but it's not. This is really hard, nasty stuff.
Yeah, I had to clean that from some machines for Mike, for sure. I definitely had ones that had developed that level of patina, sewing machine patina.
Patina grunge. So, okay, let's get out the Chapman screwdriver set and take this baby apart and put all these little bits into, what did I have? I use a lot of different degreasers, but all I had here was 91% rubbing alcohol, isopropyl. So I fill up a little plastic container and dump the bobbin winder, all these pieces and parts. I'm taking all this stuff. No, I'm not taking any of the internal rods out, but everything out of the nose, shuttle carrier, soak them in alcohol, put on a book on tape, and attack the rest of the carcass of the machine with alcohol and cotton swabs. 2 days later, now it's not perfect, but the machine's finish isn't perfect. I'm not going to repaint it. I'm not going to redecal it. I bought this machine because I want to use it. I want to use it to sit down somewhere and hand crank and sew little quilt bits and that kind of thing. And all kinds of little precise things that a hand crank is just perfect for. I altered my cat's vest. Yes, I have sewn on it now. It sews beautifully. There's not a thing wrong with it as a machine. Cosmetically, it's a dog. It's horrible. But, I thought, well, do I want to scrape this off and paint it, putrid peach or whatever and buy some new decals? And no, I just don't. Kind of like your Davis. I'm just going to leave it like it is. It's 135 years old.
Yeah. Let's own the aging process.
So, in looking up that serial number, let's get back to ISMAX here. A lot of people will post their serial number, Singer serial number pages, but they really don't, they're not accurate before 1900. ISMAX has a pre-1900 Singer serial number list that we're going to link in the show notes that is so amazingly, it starts at the beginning, like the first machine Singer made, and it says, where was it made? Yeah. Machine number 1. So serial number range 1 through 100 were made at the Boston, Massachusetts shop in late 1850. And they have number of machines reported. Okay, so I'm scrolling through this. I'm looking for my number. Wow, these are old. Wow, I'm still 4 pages in and I'm not even to my number yet. Wait. Oh, those are different models. No, I'm looking for 9703125. Na, 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 na. Oh. And it tells you what model that serial number was assigned to. Well, okay, here's the line on the chart. It's not a Model 28. It's a VS3/28. It was a transitional model between the VS3, which is vibrating shuttle, and the 28. 50,000 of this was made. 27 September 1890, Clydebank, Kilbowie, Scotland. There are 4 attested machines in this group. Mine will be the 5th.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Attested meaning pictures, this actually exists. So then I had to read about, well, the heck is a VS3? Well, I had to read about the VS series, which is when Singer invented the shuttle that went in an arc instead of back and forth behind the needle. VS1 was a beta model, didn't last too long. VS2 had a fiddle bed, a sort of curvy bed rather than a rectangle. VS3 is the one I've got. Got a plain plate on the nose, no embossing, no pretty stuff. Bobbin winders low, square bed, hand crank. This is my machine. It's a VS3/28 transitional model. Oh, why would I want to repaint that putrid peach?
No.
I've got the history. I'm September 27th, 1890. That's its birthday.
Yeah, I mean, you'd actually take away some of its historic value if you were to, just throw some paint on it.
Yeah. And on the Forsdyke scale, it's a 4+. It's a 4+. But what do I think? What's it worth? What's it worth? To me, it was worth $165. And I'm really happy to have it. And that's what it's worth.
And to the seller, it was worth $100 and all the shenanigans of doing the packing process.
It takes, I'm telling you, people, for just a machine in a case like that, not a treadle, not a cabinet, nothing, it takes at least a half an hour to pack that correctly. It takes materials. It takes box. It takes tape. It takes, selling machines is like this person. I don't know what they paid for that machine, but I don't think they made a whole lot of money on that transaction. But that's the way eBay goes. I've bought and sold machines on there myself. Sometimes you find just the right buyer happens to be looking for a machine that day. And other times your customer's not there. And if you didn't set a reserve and somebody bids really low, then you wind up like, oh, damn. I sold that whole box full of featherweight parts for $12. Oops. So what's it worth? Well, what's it worth to you? And if it's not worth anything to you, pass it on to somebody else. Just give it to St. Vinny's or something. Somebody's going to find it and go, oh my God, it's a VS3/2. Whatever.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And my machines to me are priceless because I use them for doing the sewing. So what they're worth to me is I want them to be in my house. That's what they're worth to me. You can't have them. They're mine.
They're mine. So here I am living at a job site in the desert here, and I'm off grid. I got my solar panels hooked up, and we're going to be here for 5 weeks with no electricity. What machine am I going to sew on? Get out that little VS3 sitting here at the table. It's small. It's so quiet. You needed a little adjustment. The shuttle carrier was a little sloppy, so I just adjusted that. But other than needing cleaned out, nothing wrong with it at all. And so it's been fun to sit here and I'm piecing more quilt parts.
Hell yes.
The absolute precision of being able to match points with a hand crank machine. Wait till you try it. It's fun.
Mm-hmm. So explain to me how it can be transitional with the shuttle thing. This isn't evolution. You don't have a Transformers halfway.
No. No. This was when VS3, which was VS3 and 28 look really similar, because when machines would be being made, we're moving to a new machine now, but we still have some parts left over from this one.
Oh, okay.
There's a very few differences between VS3 and 28, mostly having to do with the decals and a couple of little tiny technical things. But this was not, VS1 was the split between the transverse shuttle and the vibrating shuttle. So then VS3 was the third version of the vibrating shuttle, which then mutated into the 28 and 27. 28 was hand crank, 27 was treadle. Then they did some more modifications to make it 127 and 128. The modifications were automatic tension release, because my VS3 has the same manual tension thing like your Davis. You have to squeeze it.
Oh,
okay?
uh-huh.
So automatic tension release, shuttle ejector, a little bobbin or little button that you could push to make the shuttle pop up till it was easier to get out. And they moved the bobbin winder higher so it would do something. So there's a few changes between VS3 and 28, and then 127 and 28. So those are all considered the Singer long shuttle. They didn't make any other ones after that. They made long shuttles. Singer made long shuttles clear up until the 60s.
Really?
1960s.
Wow. I would have not assumed that.
Yeah, and it started with the VS1, and my machine has a patent. The VS3 patents were for 1886, even though my machine was made in 1890. And those, Singer 127 is everywhere. I think that's what the first machine in the Shelton McMurphy house is, the one with the silver service sitting on top.
Right.
Just bet $100 plus shipping that's at the 127 in there. So there it is. That's how I got my Singer hand crank that I wanted. And I paid what I felt was a fair value for it. And I'm happily using it. It has no sentimental value. So what kind of value does it have back from Dorothy's value scale? It has utilitarian sewing value. It has some historical value. And it's fun to look at, even in its thrashed state. It's a beautiful little thing. And it's not thrash. It's just the decals are gone and the paint's chipped. The paint was worn,
So,
my heart
aesthetic
was stone,
value.
stitches straight and fine. Yeah, but I'm happy with it. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with this thought today. When you go on a sewing machine group on Facebook or forums or Yahoo groups or whatever, do not have your first post be, "I've got Grandma's machine. What's it worth?" You won't get any real responses. You'll get a lot of eye rolls. If you say, "I've got my grandma's machine. It's a Singer VS3. I've looked it up. It's from 1890, and this is what it's like," and you show you've done some research about it, and then you say, "Is there any dollar value to this, or what's it worth?" Then you'll get a better answer, but people will still eye roll at you because what's it worth has no answer. It depends. Stay threaded.
And there you have it, an explanation of how the worth of a sewing machine can be determined. It is not a clear or simple answer, but there are many resources for narrowing in on an answer that is specific to your situation. And we went on a journey with TR to see how those specifics can play out in her most recent acquisition. We learned that value doesn't always make sense, that packing methods matter as much as the package contents, and what is meant by a transitional sewing machine. I still think geologic naming schema are simpler than the shenanigans that Singer is putting us through. I really enjoyed teasing Mom about how deeply embedded in the nerd information tunnel she is, and thinking about the value of various machines that I've had in light of what Dorothy and Graham wrote in their ISMAX essays. I was recently at a thrift store that had around 10 sewing machines available, and just like with quickly evaluating random rocks at geology field camp, I could quickly filter through what was available to see that only one machine was even close to interesting for the kinds of value I would be interested in, meaning old enough to be all metal and functional enough to resell with minimal effort. I did send a picture to Mom of the pretty green Viking that was there, but as that isn't in her wheelhouse, I left it there for another thrifter to score. As a reminder, we are unofficially sponsored by Stagecoach Road Vintage Sewing Machine, who do a very good job on all sewing machine packing jobs. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and you can support us by sharing the podcast with your friends, and also with money at patreon.com/used2sew. Thank you for listening to us here at Used to Sew. We always welcome your additions, corrections, and feedback in general. Please reach out to us via email at usedtosew@gmail.com. Used to Sew is a production of Fox and Raven Media. For more podcasts from Fox and Raven Media, visit our website at foxandravenmedia.com.